you yet another important conversation, and the National Student Financial Aid Scheme condemning the exploitation of students allegedly by their landlords. A Sunday World article exposing what it says are unscrupulous landlords who were demanding sex from students. Now, for more on this story, we're joined by NSFAS spokesperson Ishmael Mnisi. Mr. Mnisi, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Let's start with just how widespread is this practice? Is NSFAS aware of what's going on?
Well, good evening to you, Chloe, and the viewers. How widespread the issues are, would not know. However, we're following all the reported cases as exposed by the students themselves, as exposed by the media. Currently, the exposé has been in most of the institutions in KwaZulu-Natal, and particularly a student at TVET College is the one that exposed these practices. We have spoken to the TVET principal. We are investigating what happened there from that student and others, and we are, calling upon all students throughout the country, be it NSFAS or non-NSFAS beneficiaries, to make us aware of landlords who are exploiting them in all forms of exploitation, be it sexual or any other exploitation that is against the conduct that we expect from our landlords.
Detail for us some of what the one student that has been gutsy enough to talk about this, what do they say happened?
Well, we have not as yet spoken to the student, but what has been reported is that these are vulnerable students who are not as yet placed in accommodation establishments, as they have arrived in their institutions, and whilst the process is still unfolding to allocate accommodation for them, then you've got these landlords, alleged landlords, who approach them to offer them places to stay. And because, of course, the processes have not been concluded by the institutions, so then the student raised an alarm to say, well, this is what is happening as we are awaiting to be properly accommodated. We have not as yet established who that landlord is, as we are, in confidence speaking to the student through the TVET College now, so that we can identify that one, single that one, or many of them if there are many, and then, as we have said as NSFAS, we will immediately discontinue any business with them, Koli, once we can establish the veracity of the claims by the student.
Are you not able to say at this stage whether the landlords that you deal with as NSFAS could be involved here? And how do you plan to go about this? Because they're obviously going to do their best to protect themselves against a student who has no means to conduct any investigation.
Only, I must say that we've got a very good relationship with many landlords in KwaZulu-Natal and throughout the country. Actually, a majority of them, they did reach out to us yesterday upon this expose and offering to assist as well. Because remember, if something is said about them, it affects all of them. If it's said about one of them, it affects all of them. So they did reach out and offering to assist us as well, should it be established that it is indeed correct or true that the landlord has requested some favors from students. So we have not, as I'm saying, established whether that is an accredited landlord or not. But here it's not an issue. The issue is that somebody who purports to be offering student accommodation, be accredited or not, has made advances to exploit a student or students in this instance. And that is what we are investigating in order to get to the bottom of the issue.
The problem here, in part, Mr. Mnisi, is that NSFAS has been problematic in its own systems, whether it be settling tuition fees or indeed accommodation fees. Do you take part responsibility for the exploitation of these students? Because, by the way, it's not only KZN that we're talking about. Nelson Mandela University in the Eastern Cape is also in question here. Do you take part responsibility for the inefficient running of this institution?
Well, Xoli, I must indicate that NSFAS cannot exonerate itself. It is part and parcel of the system of the post-school education and training. We have a role to ensure that NSFAS-funded students get accommodation, those that they've applied.
On time?
On time, of course.
But that's been the complaint.
And how we do that, we are working together with our institution, Xoli, because we don't place students or register students in institutions. Now, the data that must move in between NSFAS and institutions is the one that ultimately determines who gets accommodated or not. And indeed, there are deficiencies in the system sometimes to find that students who have been approved for by NSFAS for funding and who have been accepted at institutions, sometimes data is delayed, and that affects the students to be accommodated. But it is not sometimes that issue on its own. As we are saying, we do take part that we will, and we are trying by all means to improve those systems. And I must say, this year we've got a very good, seamless processes between ourselves and institutions. Yeah. All that we are trying to do is to talk to the leadership of the students, because what then happens is some students, even before they even get accepted in institutions, they pitch up and overtake the system before its full implementation, and that becomes a problem. But we cannot, as the leaders as well of students, vindicate ourselves in this instance.
Very briefly, you've promised to assist students who have been violated in this way. What kind of assistance, and where do they reach you, or how?
Well, what we have done and we are going to do in the eThekwini situation, the principal is heavily involved to talk to the students, and then we are going to get involved once we have identified that student and we got the information of the landlords. We are going to take these students to open charges against the implicated perpetrators, and then upon that we are going to blacklist all those accommodation providers that are implicated, particularly those that have been affiliated with us. But even the colleges and universities will take the similar approach. Should they be established that the landlord is accredited to them as institutions, this is exactly what they are going to do.
Ishmael Mnisi, spokesperson for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. Thank you very much for your time, sir. All right.